Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money.
MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs.
And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store. Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in and welcome to episode 43 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
What is going on this evening, Trevor?
Well, I just got done putting some knobbies on my little Trail 90 project. So I'm pretty excited about that. 2.5 by 17 knobby.
Look at that.
Whatever young man tries to buy tires for his mountain bike is going to be pretty disappointed that he's out of stock.
I'm looking forward to seeing that thing, man. It looks like you've been doing a lot of stuff to it here lately.
Well, I like to tinker, and since I can't ride over winter, really, that's the move. A little project bike, so it'll be in the hard loop this year. I figured I'd be trail boss on it,
Yeah, we can start a under 150cc class.
Yeah, the small CC, big PP class.
I like it. Well, once again, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Episode 43, Productions and Pipe Dreams. So the way this is going to work is we're going to look at bikes that we know for sure are coming out, that hopefully in 2024, some of them aren't. And then also bikes that maybe there's a little hole in the market that could be filled easily with some bikes or something that we personally would like to see. Now, again, this is just me and Trevor's opinions on this stuff. It's going to be very wide and varied, and we're not going to get everything that we want. I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit in previous episodes, like, our dream bike that we'd want to build. So kind of go along the lines of that a little bit, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And there's still some bikes that are definitely coming out this year that I think are going to really change the market, hopefully.
There's a lot to be excited for. Like we talked about in the past, we kind of inadvertently ended up in some like resurgence, or I don't want to call it a new golden age by any means, but there's a lot more bikes. There's a lot more activity happening than I thought that there would be. I just figured that, for instance, the Japanese major manufacturers just continue to produce the same bikes they have for the last 20 years, until the end of time. It's exciting.
Yeah. It's also cool to see, obviously the first couple ones we're going to talk about is brands that are pretty well established in maybe not the dirt market, but, the street side of things or the venture side of things, and kind of dip their toes into putting together almost like, basically a full race effort for motocross, supercross. And what we're hoping that transitions into, obviously, is a enduro or dual sport model, something that we can enjoy on our segment of the sport. And man, one of the ones that kind of really hit the storm this week and broke through the walls, and there was a lot of hype and stuff about it, was obviously the new Ducati Desmo 450 motocross bike. And, that's something that there's been rumblings and rumors about, but I am excited to see these things in person, how they perform and stack up against the rest of the 450 class. And it's nice to go from just hearing rumblings of this bike to, hey, here it is. It's in its full glory. Here's the, what is it? I think it's Antoni Corelli and Tony. I can't remember his last name. They're the factory riders for the team. but it wasn't like Triumph where there was this long drawn out process to reveal
Yeah.
the bike. It was like, oh, you heard about our 450? Here it is.
Here it is. Yeah, when I first saw the article, I thought that it was clickbait. I thought it was one of those, 3D renders or whatever that somebody made. It's like, if Ducati came out with a new motocross bike, here's what it could look like, or something like that. So I was very surprised, to say the least, because I had heard next to nothing about the development or anything. Whereas with Triumph, I feel like, I graduated college and they first announced that they were going to start that project. So it was a very long time coming.
Yeah, it is. You got to watch that stuff, or take it with a grain of salt, I should say.
Yeah.
How many times have you been scrolling through social media, Facebook, Adventure Ride or anything like that, and there's, speculation threads on the new, there's a 2-stroke KX500 coming, aluminum frame, electric start, and then it's like the worst rendered, like Photoshop drawing you've ever seen posted up. And then everybody starts sharing it like, no, it's true, man. I saw it. It's coming out. It's coming out.
I got one on pre-order. She goes to a different school. You wouldn't know her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think this is honestly one of those cases where there was some pictures and some renderings out. And we'll take a look right here, because everything that I saw, previous to its release was pretty much damn spot on for what it looks like. So
it's difficult for me to get my hopes up after what we watched the KTM 490 end up as. Like, they even had a test mule created and everything, and still ended up tabling that whole project.
Yeah. So, we'll kind of go through some of the specs here that they've released so far. It's got Showa suspension front and rear, kind of a beaked front fender and front number plate combination, I should say. Excuse me.
The bike looks very Ducati.
Yes, very Ducati.
Yeah.
It almost has. I feel you can definitely see the Italian lineage in this thing, with the sharp lines. It reminds me a lot of the old Aprilia SXV and MXV V-twin motocross bikes. Was also a short-lived Italian effort in the dirt world.
I see they've taken the same approach to trying to centralize the center of mass and make the engine as compact as possible, the way that KTM has. Yeah. Looking at it from the side on, that looks very much like the engine on my KTM 350 dimensionally.
Yeah, from what I've seen, they've partnered up with a lot of pretty well-known aftermarket companies to support this thing. It's got Akrapovic exhaust from the factory. It has a Get ECU with a fuel map on it. They say factory Kashima coating on the fork tubes from Showa. A lot of high-end parts on this thing, obviously. And one of the big differences in this compared to a regular bike is, you can take a look at that cylinder head right there. It's utilizing Ducati's Desdromic valve setup, which is something that they've kind of pioneered in their race bikes. And for the guys that aren't really that technical, I kind of break it down real little here for you. Basically, it has less rotating parts inside to centralize less rotating mass. It's supposed to prevent valve float over 8,000 RPM. So this thing is designed to be a screamer. But in addition with that, you're going to have a lot of pretty tight maintenance intervals with this thing.
Yeah, as opposed to having a traditional finger follower on top of your cam or something, the Desmo system is actually kind of like a fork riding around your cam. So not only when you do a valve adjustment, do you have to adjust for your lash in one direction, but you're also adjusting for lash in the other direction. If you ever spend time on Ducati forums, you'll find guys absolutely losing it. They got quoted like several $1,000s for a Desmo service because there's a lot of effort involved in it. So
yeah.
Maybe they made some efforts to make it more serviceable, but being a high-strung like motocross style platform, I doubt it. That's just kind of what you deal with for a high-performance machine. I am excited to see is the Desmo valve train a gimmick, or is it able to rev like another 2,000 RPM over a comparable bike from a Japanese manufacturer?
Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously packed with technology, very cutting edge, very cool looking. We'll see how it goes. I know right now their plans are to just race that bike in the National Italian Motocross Series there this year in 24. Then they're going to plan on racing MXGP, the kind of European National Series there in 25. And then the plan is to bring it over here to America and run AMA events, Supercross and Motocross in 2026.
Yeah, it'll be well suited for Supercross.
Yeah, I feel that way too. It'll be interesting to see, what the availability to the public is going to be on this.
Yeah.
Is it just going to be, a test and tune here for the next 2 or 3 years before it gets released, or are we going to be able to see it here in dealerships? I think that's going to be the big question on that bike. I
am excited for it regardless. Anything that's kind of off the wall or unexpected, I'm a big fan of. I'm curious to see how it does, and if they've got it figured out with this Desmo valve system and everything in it, that it can rev so much faster that it does give it a competitive advantage, then that's fantastic. That breeds innovation.
Yep. And the one thing that I think is comforting for us anyway is this is based on a hyper motard bike that they have out already. So they've been able to utilize pretty much that frame and engine and some of the main components to make this into a motocross bike as well. So I personally feel with the success of the Desert X that they have, they can see that the market's there for dual sport and adventure motorcycle riding. So I would not be surprised one bit to see this thing available as a street legal off-road bike.
Yep. Like you said, it's exciting. Anything that's not electric that's coming out right now is exciting to me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it for the time being as far as electric bikes go.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing the Stark Varg was gonna sweep the market or whatever for several years now, and we're still waiting on that. Some guys are taking deliveries, but not near in the numbers they were promised, etc. But
I also heard with those, like, you pretty much have to give them the entire payment price for the whole bike down before they even start building the thing.
I saw that on was it the Dirt Bike channel on YouTube, and there was some speculation down in the comments like, well, that may have been his dealer asking for all the money up front or whatever. But regardless, it's a terrible look.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing it from a corporate standpoint or you're letting your dealers do that, neither way is a good look. Somebody commented they can't hear us. Shiloh, can you hear us? She can hear us fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unlucky for her.
I got it pulled up here on my phone as well on the side, and I can hear us talking. So
okay.
Yeah, maybe whoever that is, just click off and click back on and see if that fixes it for you.
And technical difficulties.
Oh, buddy, I've got it going on right now. My phone keeps crashing like every 5 minutes there, and I'm going to go get a new phone this week, so not looking forward to that. Moving on, let's talk about the other European motocross bike that's, like you said, been coming out since we've been in college, and that is the new Triumph 250. So obviously we've touched on this before in the past in the program. It's got to be the longest unveiled motorcycle of all time. We had teaser videos for the spoke nipples, teaser videos for the front brake lever. I've never seen this type of marketing, and it's the complete other end of the spectrum compared to what Ducati did. So I feel that if you're going to do that or market it this way, this has to be without a shadow of a doubt, the best 250 in the class. It cannot have any gripes, complaints, or any type of deficiencies compared to the other 250 bikes in this class, because they have pushed it on us for so long. They've developed it for what seems like the last 5-6 years. This thing has to kick the door in and come in as the leader when it comes to the 250 class.
You've created like this Paul Bunyan mythical thing you have to try to live up to. You're almost too big for your own shadow at this point. They claim that it leads the pack in both weight and horsepower. The article that I read that was a press release from them did not go into actual figures. So if it is lighter and more powerful than, say, an uncorked 250 SX, I would be surprised, because it seems KTM's gotten really good at wringing out about all the power they can without getting into emissions laws and all that stuff. As well as I do, the KTM 500 leaves a lot on the table to meet emissions. But yeah, the wait time and everything for Triumph has been the most significant I've ever seen. But then they made their big announcement, and then it was just like radio silence. I expected to see, like, okay, here's, say, the Dirt Bike channel or something like that on YouTube that got a test bike, and that just hasn't really happened yet. I need more than just like onboard footage of a guy whipping it around a motocross track. I need a guy that puts the hours on it and gives it an objective review based on his experiences.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a classic case of, crying wolf too many times.
Yep.
I think everybody's just tired of seeing those press releases, and, obviously the owners of Triumph and Ricky Carmichael, who's one of the biggest partners in developing this motorcycle, talk about it. And obviously the factory guys that they have racing on their team, of course they're going to rave about it. They're being paid to ride the motorcycle. So yeah, I think it's time to put up or shut up when it comes to this thing. We want to see objective reviews. We want to see it, stack up and compare in a 250 shootout against all the other bikes. Yeah. And along that same token, kind of the same deal as we were talking about with the Ducati. I feel that they're kind of in that same mold of super successful with adventure bikes, obviously been around forever. And I do not see this thing not becoming a street legal dual sport. Yep. And in fact, with the 250, also bumping that up to a 450 as well.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to just see another 300 enter the market. I think that Triumph could do something similar to what Beta has done with their 4-strokes in the US. Their production volume is so small that they are not beholden to the same emissions laws and everything else. That Beta 500 I had was functionally uncorked, from the factory. Triumph could do something similar. Yeah, you would pay for it, don't get me wrong, but I think that would be a great option for a dual sport that's better suited to the kind of terrain that we ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Beta, shout out to friend of the program Tyler Vincent on his new Beta 390. So shout out to him. Let's take a little bit closer look at this Triumph. I know a lot of people were kind of comparing this to a KTM 250 4-stroke engine. I know it looks very similar in many ways. And also the frame on this thing looks almost identical to a 06, 07 era YZ250F Yamaha chassis. So
they went with aluminum frame. I can see like a big monolithic casting for like the backbone where the subframe and everything bolts onto, and then like a wishbone style front frame or whatever. People say that it looks the same, and it does to an extent, but when you start out with the same design parameters of this displacement, this diameter clutch basket, this many gears, there's only so many ways you can crunch that stuff together.
That's right.
And you're trying to get your weight as centralized as possible and everything else. So
I think it also, speaks to what we talked about in I think it was episode 41, where we were saying that basically, the bike technology has gotten to such a point now where there's not a whole lot of innovation when it comes to especially like frame design and stuff. So that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of bikes just look basically the same other than a different color plastics.
We're running out of ways to skin the cat.
Yeah.
Something I am excited about, and we've touched on this a lot, is when they first announced the Triumph 250, I thought for certain that it would be, some CF Moto partnership engine or something like that. But they're going to produce those bikes, engines, etc., in their existing factories for Triumph. So I'm not sure, to my knowledge, whether or not they have a factory in, say, India or something like that, but it at least makes me more I guess, confident, makes me feel better inside about the potential quality of this if they're handling everything that they can in-house with their existing facilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Create more jobs for local people and, obviously giving themselves another foothold into a different style market. And I think that's what Ducati and Triumph both saw was, obviously KTM, Husky, Gas kind of have a stranglehold on that side of the market, especially in the European side of things. So the ability for them to kind of step out from what they normally do and really do a full-fledged effort, I mean, is really positive in my opinion. So we'll see how it folds out, man. Like we said before, this is crazy to think how long this has been announced and really no solid concrete reviews or specs for that matter for the Triumph.
Yep. So hopefully here soon we'll be able to watch a video of the Stark Varg versus the Triumph 250, go head to head. Maybe they'll hit the market about the same time.
Would be interesting. And obviously last picture, there's the GOAT himself, Ricky Carmichael, ripping the thing through the
man.
That makes me want to buy one. Next on the list is a bike that will 1,000% be coming out here in 2024. And actually, we have concrete testing proof of this machine. This thing's actually been around for, I think, since 2021 or 2022. It was an off-road only race model. And, for some reason, you don't really see a whole lot of these. And that is the new Sherco 500. Yep. Which will be a 50 state legal dual sport model now this year in 2024. Sherco's a lot like Beta in my opinion. Kind of started out as a trials company, decided to start dabbling back in the 2006, 2007 year with full size motorcycles, and Beta kind of did the route of, well, it's basically a red KTM. And as they kind of got sales and they got their foothold in the market, you started seeing them differentiate themselves from just being a different colored bike and becoming a brand of their own. And, Sherco, obviously, with the World Hard Enduro Series, obviously, they've won multiple races, multiple championships, trials championships. I mean, they have a very, very historic and good background and seem to put out very quality machines. One of my personal heroes in the World Hard Enduro stage, Mario Ramon, has been a factory rider for them forever. And U.S. rider Cody Webb has really dominated here in the Enduro Cross series on a Sherco. And speaking of him, Dirt Bike Magazine actually got to do a test with him on this Sherco 500 dual sport model. And, I think you got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but he did say that basically this thing was pretty much on par with his 450 race machine that he runs in select events. And he said that basically he could pick that 500 dual sport up, ride it from the dealership to a race, be very competitive at the race, and ride it home. And personally, I feel that that's probably pretty accurate coming from him. Now, when you have that type of skill level, you can do a lot of different things, obviously. I am super excited to see Sherco, kind of step into the street legal world now.
Yeah. What you said that Cody Webb can pretty much whip anything. It was the same way as Tony Bow and Paul Terras selling Africa Twins and Tenere 700s respectively to guys that saw that and thought that they'd be able to replicate it. I think Sherco's in a really good position to do effectively what Beta did with their 4-strokes. You're a low volume seller. You're below the threshold for the EPA. Therefore, you're not stuck trying to meet EPA regs. KTM's tagline has been ready to race for quite some time now, but can you really claim that a KTM 500 EXC is ready to race next to a Sherco or a Beta 500 that's already uncorked? And from my understanding, the Shercos come factory set up with a lot of things that guys would normally throw on there anyway, like
Yeah.
shift levers, brake levers, pegs, stuff like that. Kind of their niche is to give you a bike off the showroom that's already got most of what you would want on it.
Yeah.
Which for some guys probably works out great. For others, you're just paying extra for Gucci gear that you're going to swap out for Fastway pegs and stuff like that anyway. But they're in an interesting spot in the market. I wish they would come out with like a 350 or something to spur some competition with KTM.
Actually, the Sherco 300 SEF is also coming out this year as a legal model as well.
Huh.
Yeah. So yeah, it is exciting. We're getting obviously another player in this game, but you really have so many good options. I feel in that lightweight, hardcore dual sport realm, where say you're coming from a DRZ or maybe a heavier Japanese 650, and you really want to get into the kind of riding that me and you really like to do. There's so many options out between Beta, Sherco, KTM, Husky now. So I think obviously competition breeds innovation, and when you have more options available, I mean it's fantastic.
It is crazy in a short span of time. We went from a somewhat long-lived era where your only options were heavy Japanese 650s, 400s, etc., or orange KTMs or blue and white KTMs. Yeah. You have your KTM or your Husqvarna, and we're finally approaching a point where there's more beyond that. You're not funneled into, well, I want a bike that's better for more hardcore terrain, so I guess I'll go buy a KTM. There's options now that there weren't even just a couple years ago. So
yeah,
I wasn't necessarily expecting that out of the 2024 model year or whatever, but that's a welcome sight to have some more options out there.
Yeah, and not only overall having more options, but actually having options in our area.
Yep.
Elkins Suzuki, obviously a Beta dealer. They have
shout out to Sterling down at Elkins Motorsports for his Beta dealership.
And with the Sherco, you have Enduro 31 down in Bridgeport, which I assume is going to offer this 500 and 300 street legal model as well. And I know you go to say a new East Coast cross country race, Mountain State Hare Scramble race, or even the local GNCC races. A lot of times what you see at the top of the pack is a Sherco from Enduro 31. So obviously they're good bikes. They have, like I said, a really proven track record when it comes to hardcore stuff. So I would absolutely love to throw a leg over one of these Sherco 500s. And not only that, I know we've talked about it in the past of doing like some shootout episodes, but if we could line up, a Beta, a Sherco, and a KTM 500 and just ride them all back to back, I think that would make for some great content.
That'd be exciting.
Kind of also speaking about the 500 thing real quick, don't count out the SWM 500s. I know that the U.S. distributors kind of lax a little bit and they're hard to get, but obviously based on the old school like redhead Huskies, but the SWM 500s are pretty decent as well. So you got all kinds of offerings when it comes to that size class.
So the only Sherco I've seen in person was at a Hare Scramble. Funny enough, it was either 250 or 300. It was one of their larger bore two strokes, and the guy that was riding it was, I won't say older, but he was a more seasoned rider. He clearly thrown a leg over of many different machines and said that out of everything he'd ever ridden, that was his favorite bike.
Yeah.
For that Hare Scramble type of terrain.
Yep. I got to throw a leg over a guy's Beta at the 304 last year and help up a hill climb. And, once you get used to that KTM / like Euro feel of the frame, any of those bikes like that just feel right at home. And
they do.
It's nice to get to that point where, I would 100% see myself riding one of these Sherco 500s.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're definitely looking forward to that. And obviously, of quality components, when you really look at it, KYB suspension, it's the closed chamber triple SK AVA stuff like the nice Yamahas have. Akrapovic exhaust, just the list goes on some great stuff. The one knock that I have seen on the Sherco stuff is it seems like the aftermarket's getting kind of slow or lax about offering oversized tanks for the Shercos.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of room on that package of a frame, and you don't really get a whole lot of range out of those. So maybe that's something to look to in the future.
So back when a KLX 250 was my main bike, that was my largest gripe for that machine. It's fuel injected, so they make oversized tanks for the carbureted models, but naturally you can't swap over. So someone on a forum had contacted the owner of, I think, IMS, and they pretty much said that, if you can get me a guaranteed list of, X number of guys are going to buy this, we'll make the mold and we'll do it. Otherwise, it's a non-starter for their R&D costs and everything like that. So, that is something that you kind of get stuck with when you stray from Team Orange, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is what it is. If you're not trying to cover a significant amount of distance, if you're not trying to get to Richwood, I wouldn't worry about it, But
I want you to know that what was it, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I sat there and just combed through all of our footage for the last 42 episodes we've done. And I was sitting there trying to put together a compilation, kind of do a 1 year celebratory thing. And it took me almost 3.5 hours, but I finally found the episode where we first said, whatever gets you to Richwood. I got that. Richwood. Thinking about doing a slightly different intro, and I'm going to definitely throw that on there for sure.
Oh yeah, that's fun. That's an experience, that's, I'd hang my hat on that one. And at the time it sucked, but rarely do you sit back on your perfect picturesque ride and reminisce. It's normally the stuff that went wrong that you overcame that you look back on and makes you feel good.
Oh yeah. Any time that you can come up with a new saying in the group, you've been through something that was definitely an experience.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps up the, so to speak, known models, ones that we're guaranteed that are coming out. I mean, maybe Triumph. We might not put them in that category with how long the release is. But this next three bikes are ones that maybe there's been some renderings, some rumorings, and there's definitely a call for these things, but for one reason or another, they just haven't materialized. And the first one we're going to touch on is one that I feel Yamaha is definitely missing the mark here, 1,000%.
Oh, I've got opinions on this one, baby.
Yeah, that's a Tenere 300, or even let's say a WR 250 or 300R model. To me, out of all the 250 offerings in the, I'm going to say liquid cooled dual sport small bike offerings, the CRF 300, the KLX 300 now, I feel like the Yamaha WR 250R was the best of the bunch.
Yep.
Price wise, what you got for the money and its capability out of the box. I feel like Yamaha hit it out of the park when it came to the small dual sport world, and they just abruptly left it. I saw those things all over the place. Joey Ellis's dad has one now that he absolutely rips on. And, there was so much aftermarket support for those things. And like I said before, in my opinion, it was the best of the three. And they just pulled out completely. Now, they do still offer the XT250, which our buddy John Trotto has taken on some pretty aggressive and rough stuff. He did the Brandywine ride with us on it before, and it held up great. But, in my opinion, that thing's not really geared towards, maybe some more hardcore riding.
Yeah.
It's a trail bike with blinkers, but it still did great. But I really think Yamaha is missing the mark here when it comes to a hardcore small dual sport in my eyes.
Yep. I've Well, you've heard me say that for several years now. I initially wanted a WR250R, ended up getting my Kawasaki 250 instead, which, you know, wouldn't necessarily change it because it led to a lot of great memories. But the 300cc small dual sport market is thriving right now. You know, that's what a lot of guys are getting into the sport on, because it's in an interesting class where it's not threatening. Like, it's an approachable bike that you can learn on and get your feet under you and everything, but you don't outgrow it quite as fast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which, you know, me having a KLX 250 and Arthur coming from a CRF 250L, you kind of you're wanting more power most of the time. After you get some experience and everything, you're wanting more power. So, you know, I think that's a good means to an end on that front. Yamaha is absolutely missing the mark. I don't know if it's an emissions related thing or if they've just done a market analysis and determined they simply don't have the capability. There were, you know, mom and pop machine shops selling 300cc big bore kits for WR250Rs for quite some time. You know, the bikes were huge in the US, they were huge in Australia, overseas, and was it the 2020 model year or something like that? 2018 model year, somewhere in there. They just
somewhere in there, yeah.
Exited the market, never to be seen again. And I thought for sure that when Kawasaki and Honda both announced 300s, that Yamaha would be right there, and it just hasn't happened. But they're effectively printing money with the Tenere 700, so to some extent, I get it. But man, I'd really just like to see it. If they came out with a WR300R that made class-leading power like the 250 did for the 250 class, I'd seriously consider switching from KTM over to that thing. So, I mean, it's is what it is. Good thing that'll never happen, because, you know, they're not gonna produce the bike, or when they do, it'll be like at the tail end of the 300 craze, and they'll say, "Well, see, we told you guys that there was no sense in producing this thing."
Yeah, and like we've talked about before, I don't feel like it would be hard for them to make this bike, because take what they did with the Tenere 700. They took the MT-07 engine and some of the frame design and just basically made it more dirt oriented and gave it a little bit better suspension. They already have that bike out, the MT-03. So the engine is there. You know, a lot of the major components are there already. Change the bodywork, give it a little bit better suspension. You have something there.
Yep. Yeah, and then you know, they're almost leaving money on the table to some extent. I mean, the lightweight dual sport market is really starting to take off, like the middleweight adventure bike market too.
Yeah.
So you got, say, the Versus 300, you know, sells well enough. Kawasaki keeps making it. So I think there's definitely some room in the market for a 300cc adventure bike like that.
Think about that. Kawasaki does the Versus 300 and the KLX 300 at the same time. Yep. And they're both selling like hotcakes. So.
That's what I was about to say. So the Versus 300 has a street bike engine. The Kawasaki 300 the KLX 300 has essentially a KLX 250 engine that's punched out to a 300, which isn't that much additional displacement. Yamaha could do the same thing. Take your idea of having the MT-03 engine for their adventure bike, lightweight adventure bike, and then take the 250 engine, bore it out to a 300, put a hot cam in it or whatever, and I mean, then again, I neither work for the engineering department, research and development department, or marketing or finance or anything department of Yamaha. So,
yeah, and even if, say, they didn't want to go full bore with a retooled, you know, WR250 engine, they make a 300 air-cooled 4-stroke engines for all kinds of different stuff. This is the next bike we're going to show you is one that was built by TJP out west. I think it was California that built this. they basically took the XT250 engine or bike and just, made it more off-road ready and ready to go. I honestly love the looks of this thing, man. I think that is an absolutely sweet looking machine.
I'm a sucker for any of like the retro buffalo hump tank shapes that you'd see in like the old school Dakar or something like that, mixed with like modernized lighting and stuff. Yeah, I really like the look of that bike. There's nothing wrong with an air-cooled bike unless you're doing like tight technical woods for a significant amount of time on end. Yeah, they call them an oil boiler for a reason, but for basic dual sport use, there's nothing wrong with an air-cooled bike, especially if you back it up with a decent oil cooler and all that. So there's options out there for Yamaha, but there's got to be a reason they just haven't explored, or maybe they have explored and just determined that their market share wouldn't be great enough, and that they'll just keep using that money and time and everything, that effort to continue to improve the Tenere, for instance.
Yeah, that's probably accurate, I would think. Also, speaking of the kind of light middleweight, I would kind of do. There was a lot of spy shots and test rides done, and this project seems to be completely just basically shit canned and shelved for now. And that was the KTM 490 Enduro, which in my eyes, I think this thing was sold so well. I really don't understand why they decided to quit doing it. I don't know if they thought it cut into the 350 and 500 sales that they had, but I mean, honestly, people have been clamoring for some type of basically a hotter version of a 390 adventure. Something with a bit more suspension and that trellis frame and LC4 style engine is been proven to be dead reliable, and people loved it to death. So if you would offer a smaller version of that, I feel like it was sold very well.
You and I were both excited about that bike. It would have been a great option to split the difference between adventure riding and dual sport riding, for instance. The KTM's current 390 offering is a bit too street bike.
Yeah.
Like for my, to be of any use to me, really. If I did more road riding and gravel and stuff like that, it would make sense. But, that was the bike that was as close to the unicorn bike that we described in one of our earlier episodes. That was as close as we were going to get. That was, reasonable displacement, a little bit of a larger bike, so you get, a little bit more comfortable ergonomics and everything like that. The capability to do highway when necessary, reasonable lightweight, but it just stopped cold. It was so disappointing when they just up and dropped that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you have guys that buy the 390 Adventure, or maybe they adventurize the 390 Duke if they get it on a good price, that they realize, hey, I like this engine size. This is a cool bike, but it needs some better suspension. It needs to be a little bit more off-road oriented, because they find themselves kind of going on some more technical tight stuff. And I feel like that 490 size with basically, the Duke style frame and engine and everything, but just have more suspension travel would appeal to so many different people. And I think a lot of, smaller riders would definitely appreciate something that they could hop on and kind of be their KTM 690 in a way.
Yep. There's nothing wrong with a smaller displacement machine, man. If you're more comfortable on it, you're more comfortable on it. And stuff that the more approachable a bike can be for newcomers, the longer this hobby is going to stick around.
Yeah. Well, and if you look too, Beta is kind of the king of bike offerings when it comes to different displacements and sizes.
Yeah.
But, KTM, they got the 390 Adventure, and then there's such a jump from the 390 to the 690 if you're going to go on that adventure style machine. And I don't feel that the KTM 350 or the 500 fill that void between the 390 and the 690, in my opinion.
I don't think so either. They're bikes intended for entirely different purpose. In the case of the KTM 500, at least.
Yeah, and the head scratching thing to me is they canned the 490 idea and then brought back the 790, which to me just buy an 890. Why would you want to buy waste money on the 790?
I don't understand KTM's approach necessarily with offering a 690, a 790, an 890, an 1190.
Yeah, 1290.
I feel like you could have a lower displacement for the folks that wanted that. Pick one middle displacement bike, either the 690 or 790, and then one ridiculous high displacement bike that was kind of like the was that the Super Enduro R or whatever. Yeah, Dan's got one. That thing is an animal.
Yeah.
I never really understood KTM's approach to offering so many different displacements for the same class of bike. But
yeah, if it were me, I would offer a 390 Adventure, this 490, the 690, the 890, and then just go all out after that. 1290. Like we don't need anything in between.
Yeah, if you're too much of a man to ride the 890, then here's something that will genuinely terrify you.
Yeah. Those LC8s are badass.
Oh, I'd love to have one, but
Dan, the rescue man's got that 950 Enduro, which is an animal. Absolutely.
Yeah. That thing is a whole different breed of machine. That was like pre-traction control, pre-rider aids. It's like, here's two fire-breathing cylinders between your legs. Good luck and Godspeed. That's such a cool machine.
So the last bike, it to me honestly isn't a bike. It's more of a brand that I want to see come back in 2024. I feel it's time. I feel it's time for the United States to step into the ring, bring back the old brand, or even start a new one. But I feel like there's enough market out there, especially just here in the United States. Say you don't even import it or export it to anybody else. I think people in America would buy a American-made motorcycle now, as long as it was a little more thought out than the old Cannondale was. But let's bring back ATK, man.
Yep, that'd be.
I would love to see.
That'd be so exciting.
Yeah, I want to see an American bike make it back into the ring again.
Bring back ATK with the same forward-thinking, somewhat oddball, tech that nobody else was trying at the time. That was what was always exciting. I'd read articles about ATK and stuff like that. Is they weren't afraid to try, which in hindsight might have contributed to their lack of success in some regard. But yeah, I'd love to see an American manufacturer come back to some extent. At the same time, I fear, say, ATK's intellectual property, the branding, etc., being bought out, and then it's a CF Moto with ATK decals on it.
Yeah,
I'd rather it stay dead forever than see it revived as a
Chinese
knockoff. Yeah,
I agree with that. My thought is there's got to be somebody out there with way too much money that loves motorcycles that wants to see this happen. I mean, even looking at the Chinese side of stuff, look at the guy that started Code. This dude was, a rich guy that wanted to start his own rally team, and he built his own bike company out of his bare hands, basically. I don't see how that can't happen in America as well. And you're just having more offerings in every type of class, and I really do feel like the sting and the stink of the Cannondale 440 is past us, and I think America is ready for its own motorcycle dirt bike brand.
Well,
one of the old Cannondales there.
If I ever hit the lottery, I will step up. I will do my patriotic duty to see to it that an American motorcycle manufacturer, comes back. But I should start playing the lottery first if I want to make that happen.
When you think about it, though, think about all the innovations that the Cannondale had back in those days that we use now. It is absolutely insane. You know, it had fuel injection. It had a reverse cylinder head design, just like Yamaha uses now.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of the stuff on that thing, it was absolutely radical and crazy for the time, but it's stuff that we use now. So obviously their thinking was right on par with where the industry was going to be today.
There's absolutely such a thing as being too far ahead, I guess, of your own good or for the current limitations and everything else. There's been a lot of instances throughout the years of innovations and dirt bikes and motorcycles that kind of died off and then got picked up years later as some like amazing new concept, but it had already been done. It just wasn't quite ready either from a market or, design or materials standpoint even.
Yeah. I just, in my heart, I feel like if I go to a dealership and I'm going to buy, let's just say it's a KTM 500 or a ATK 500. The specs are the same. Price is pretty well comparable and same. I think I'm going to give the American bike a shot over the new KTM. I've had the KTM. I know what it's like. If I knew that all of my funds were going to an American company with American jobs, I feel like a lot of people in this country would feel the same way as I do and try to put the money on that side of things.
Yep, I agree. We're kind of at the point where we're going to see where the American buyer sentiment goes as time goes on. Are we going to see the pendulum swing back the other direction from being so heavily reliant on China for our production needs, or is the pendulum just going to swing even harder in the direction it's going now?
Yeah,
I don't know one way or the other, but man, I just any brand or revival or whatever that comes about and continues to innovate, I'd love to see it. I'd be extremely excited for it. But again, my stipulation is if it's just going to come back as a CF Moto or other Chinese bike with different stickers on it, then no, I'd rather see it remain a memory. Same way with Volkswagen purchasing the rights to the International Scout name, icon or iconography and all that stuff. And they're going to bring it back as an electric vehicle that's going to be, their own version of a GMC Yukon or something like that. I'd rather just see it stay dead. I'd rather just see it remain as a memory than be brought back as something it never was.
Yep. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
So there's my get off my lawn soliloquy for the day.
Yeah. I did see something hilarious on Marketplace the other day. It was an SSR 200. So obviously Chinese knockoff of a CRF 250, and it had American flag graphics all on it.
It's like I'll see old Toyota, or you see a lot of old Toyota pickups where they all rotted in two, unfortunately, with rebel flags on the front license plate, stuff like that. It's like you got a little bit of a crisis of identity going on.
Yeah, I had what was it there? A couple years back, I had one of those at a Husky TXC 449, which was the BMW Husky.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I had at the time I had that Saab 97X, which is basically like it's like a Chevy Trailblazer basically. And I'm sitting there like, all right, I've got a Swedish vehicle. I've got a Italian/German motorcycle on the back. Like, should I be flying an Axis flag right now or what?
So I got 3 Japanese motorcycles and 1 Austrian motorcycle. So if I can get a hold of an Italian and a few other small countries, and we can reunite the World War II Axis powers under one roof.
I don't know if Romania is making motorcycles now. I know they were in there for a little while.
I don't know I need a Ural. Well, no, they were on the winning team.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's look at some comments we got for the show tonight. Like I said, unfortunately, my phone is taking a crap, so I'm not going to be able to see who commented on this
Let's
stuff.
see if I can help you out here.
Yeah, first one we got says the Desert X is solid. I'm sure their motocross bike will be solid. Probably agree with that. I think it was I think Doug Walls was the one that said he couldn't hear us, I believe. He says he can hear us now. Somebody else says, hey, watch it with the T7 blows.
Yep, that was Irish Gypsy George.
Yeah, old Irish. I don't think it's blows. It's affirmation because let's face it. What do everybody else compare their new lightweight middleweight adventure bike to? The T7.
That's like it's like the Toyota Tacoma of the midsize truck world, as the Tenere is to the middleweight adventure bike world. It's like Honda's new Hornet 750 came out. It's like, is this the Tenere killer? It's like, no, probably not. The Tenere is ubiquitous and already rooted itself in the market, man.
You know how, like, I don't know how well you follow sports and stuff, but like on the NBA side of things, there was such a deal going on for a long time about, whatever somebody did in the NBA, how does this affect LeBron's legacy? I feel like that's how the T7 is now. How does this affect the T7?
We say that all the time. My buddy started saying, well, how does this affect the native trout population?
How does this affect the was that the Guyandotte crab in the southern part of the state?
Yep. How does this affect my chances of getting a Yamaha WR300R before they outlaw internal combustion engines, period?
I love those memes where it shows Popcorn Sutton.
Yeah.
And it says, like, me with my grandkids making illegal gasoline to run the last known Chevy LS swap BMW down the street.
Yep.
Those are the greatest. Somebody else says also own an Africa Twin too.
That was also
Irish. Okay.
Yeah.
38 years ago, Team Orange was obscure. Not much aftermarket support. Everything changes. Yeah, and I hope it does Sherco as well.
Yeah, that was from Jeff Wright. That's a good point. And I've seen, in the 4x4 world at least, nobody makes parts for it because nobody buys them, and then nobody buys them because nobody makes parts for them. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. If 20% of people that were going to buy KTMs went out and bought a Sherco instead, the aftermarket would respond in short order.
Yep. So I agree with that. I think it's hard for Yamaha to turn an eye towards the light dual sport scene when they're nearly dominating the light adventure scene right now. Yep, and I think that's what we touched on, and I would agree with that as well.
That was the guy that posted that overpriced DR650.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't like that guy.
Tyler Vincent.
I want a Tenere 900. Hey, they got the MT-09. It's available. I actually saw a guy on Adventure Rider take one of the older Yamaha FJ-09s, and he put WR suspension on it. If you look in the some assembly required thread on Adventure Rider, you can look that thing up. That's a pretty sweet looking bike. Let's see. Suzuki's in another odd boat with the DRZ 400. Is a great bike, but they're going to lose out if they don't start to update it soon. Yeah, and I think that even though it's a liquid-cooled motorcycle, they also fall into what we were talking about before with the emissions issues. If you go to modify it or do anything, it's already grandfathered in as it is, and it's very hard for Suzuki, especially in their place right now with how they kind of refuse to upgrade any motorcycles and just rest on their laurels and sell.
Well, they did give us the new V-Strom.
Yeah, that was kind of out of left field for them, I feel.
I'd still like to try that out.
Yeah, me as well.
People complain all the time about DR's Z400's lack of a 6 gear. Even a change like that negates their grandfather clause or whatever they've got going for emissions. And
they're lucky.
They know they can't meet modern emissions.
Yeah, they're lucky the color changes they do don't affect that as well now with all of our regulations.
You give it time.
Yeah, 440 was ahead of its time and just needed tech that didn't exist at the time. And I would 100% agree with that. The fuel injection on that thing was kind of clunky, and I think if it had, our modern day style fuel injection, it probably would have went way faster than it was. I still want to know what's middleweight about it.
It's Irish. In regards to the comment I made about the Tenere being ubiquitous in the middleweight adventure bike,
I would say that, anywhere from 350 pounds to 700 pounds. It seems like that's what they're referring to now.
It is a boat anchor compared to, say, a DRZ 400, for instance.
Yeah.
But it is a featherweight compared to R1250 GS.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where they get the middleweight adventure bike nomenclature from.
Yeah, you as long as you're under a gold wing, you're classified as middleweight now.
Yep. Yeah. As long as you weigh less than a Yugo, you're middleweight adventure.
You got to register as a light truck now. You do have to remember that Suzuki almost went out of business after tsunami and have been struggling ever since. Yeah. They do seem to still sell things, though. I forget about that all the time. Things aren't looking good for them right now. And we'll see what the future holds for them.
Yep.
Well, with that, we didn't get to do this last week. We kind of ran over time, but we will go into it tonight, and that's some industry news. I actually got a picture of the first thing we're going to talk about. Tusk releases a new adventure bike tire. The 2-track tire is aimed at giving the middleweight adventure bike, there's that word again, segment a cheap full-on knobby option. Current offerings are a 150/70/18 rear and a 90/90/21 front, with more sizes to come. And I would say that based off the way the tire looks and some of the preliminary reviews I've seen, there's a picture of the rear. This thing is probably going to dominate the market just for the simple fact of its price, man. It is $69 for the front and like $109 for the rear. So that is like the cheapest full-size adventure size tire you can get for that.
And in a market segment where Motos are what, 120, 140. There's a reason I've never ran one. Still hard to beat. Trackmaster, it's not here for a long time. It's here for a good time.
Let me tell you something.
On your Tenere 700, you could probably easily get like 50 miles out of one of these.
We love Kenda tires so much here on the podcast. We're still looking for that sponsorship, Kenda. So if anybody out there is a distributor and can help us out, let us know.
Yeah.
I needed tires for the 4-door Wrangler I have, right? Looking around, 37-inch tires suck. They are just expensive no matter which way you want to slice it or what kind you want to buy. And luckily, friend of the program and my friend Jack could get a set of the new Kenda Cleaver MT2s for a very good price. So not only will my motorcycle be rocking the Kendas, my daily driver and / off-road rig will also be rocking some Kendas on as well.
Well, I hope for the sake of your wallet that the Kendas on your Jeep last longer than the Kendas on the back of my KTM.
We have some good positive reviews so far, so we'll see how that goes. I am looking forward to getting them and trying them out. Jed Smith with Back Roads of Appalachia has that 24-hour rally coming up, so that'll be the first time to try those things out. Looking forward to that event.
Nice.
So yeah, we'll see how they do. Mason Klein's Dakar effort comes to an end.
Yep.
He was pretty close to the finish line, but did not finish the race. I think it was stage 4 that he had to bow out of. He had some engine issues. I know the thing was overheating really bad, and I think he cooked the stator and it refused to charge. And he was done with his go there.
He did not have an easy time. I followed him pretty closely. He had a really rough go with that machine. And it's something I brought up to you. I don't remember if I brought it up on the podcast or not. Is, the first year Cove ran, they had relative amateur riders in the Dakar.
Yeah.
Now that we're seeing more professional riders that can wring the bike's neck, really trying to squeeze out everything it's got, that's when you're going to start seeing a lot more issues. So
Yeah, I agree with
hopefully Covey uses that to drive innovation and make some improvements.
Yeah, they Mason did have a really rough go of it. Hell, his race bike got held up in customs. He didn't even get to. He didn't think he was going to be able to start on the thing. He was hunting the pits for any kind of other bike he could ride at the point. But give Cove some credit. They sent 3 guys in a box van out there, like kind of cannonball run style.
Hot shot it.
And he did dominate in the navigation stage, which is what his forte is.
Yep.
And at one point, he was running 3rd in the Dakar on that thing. So
I just if he chooses to run Covey again next year, I hope he has a better run of it, because he's a good rider, great navigator, and he deserves a machine that can allow him to excel.
I think that's going to be the ultimate telltale sign of where Cove is. If Mason returns and races for them again next year, I think you're going to see that he sees that there's something there and it's worth the effort. If he gets picked up by another company or another brand, I think you could kind of maybe see the writing on the wall that bike wasn't what he wanted it to be. So that'll be very interesting come 2025. Last but not least, the new BMW RS 1300 in partner with Metzler accomplished something pretty insane. They were able to climb one of the world's tallest volcano peaks. So the only thing I can think is they found out through satellite GPS that there must have been a Starbucks up there at the top.
Had to have been.
So world's highest active volcano, Nevada Ojos de Salado. I probably butchered that to hell and back. On the border of Argentina and Chile. Like I said, in partnership with Metzler. The next generation adventure bike climbed more than 6,000 meters, which we need to use proper terms because
I only recognize measurement systems of countries that went to the moon.
It was all done in under 24 hours. They were able to ascend the rock channel, which is I saw some picture of this. It's like the only path up to the top of that thing. And 19 hours and 22 minutes. So it's 19,773 feet. That's pretty cool. So
we should invite that guy to the 2024 3 or 4 detour hard loop.
Say if they can do it on a 1300 GS, he'd be all right in our ride for sure.
Yep.
Well, last but not least, we got everybody's favorite part. Had to layer down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to layer down.
This week's Had to Layer Down is brought to us by our friends Rob and Lisa from the program. Rob actually tagged me in this video earlier in the week, and I was like, yeah, that has to be on Had to Layer Down. So, kind of speaking back to Dakar a little bit here, I'm not sure what's going on here. I've heard rumors that this was actually a test of a airbag crash jacket that they were trying out in Dakar. I've heard that this was a complete failure of some other kind of obscure Chinese rally effort. So let's play out and see what happens.
I'll let it play, and then we'll delve in.
So it's kind of weird. It goes back so you can see what happens there. But obviously, he hit some steering sim clippings there. Yeah.
Well, first of all, the guy's lucky to be able to walk after that. Second of all, the speculation that I saw, and this is corroborated with stuff I saw in the pre-rally like pit stuff or whatever. There was a guy that was like trying to Iron Man an electric bike. So when that thing splits in two, you can actually see the battery pack drop out, and that's what causes the whole thing to upend or whatever. So it is an electric bike. And from what I understand, it's like a one-off chassis designed around like that specific battery pack and motor and everything else.
Oh, I see it there now.
Yep.
Okay. So note to self: don't take your Sur on the car.
Yep. Yeah. Note to self: there's a reason why companies like KTM spend a ridiculous amount of money in R&D and simulation. to try to figure out fatigue testing for their head tubes and stuff. But yeah, that was definitely one of the craziest Dakar moments of this year. And that's saying something because it was a wild run this year.
You know what I think is really odd and crazy about that event is that there's also another race going on at the exact same time, the Africa Eco Race, and it like goes through the same area. Like there's literally competitors just passing each other. Like that would be so confusing to me. That's what Paul Terrace and the Yamaha Rally World team got to run, was that Africa Eco Race.
I've never even heard of that before, but I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, it's a little odd to me. So.
Huh.
Well, we thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I personally feel this was a really awesome episode. We touched on a lot of cool stuff, and as always, we appreciate the support, guys. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
We'll see you next Tuesday.